will call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is August the 5th at 7:01 p.m. I'd ask the commission secretary to call the roll, please.
Joe Edmond.
Here.
Ron Hosmer. Here. Greg Michelle.
Here.
Mike McLaughlin.
Here.
Richard Hawk.
Here.
Kay Snyder.
Here.
Neil Jensen.
Here.
Also with us tonight is City Administrator Schroeder and Councilmember Vise. And we will move into our first item tonight, which is a public hearing to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request from Duke and Susan Daniel to replat 3.197 acre tract of land by removing a lot line between two platted lots and establishing lot 2A on property located at 10716 Los Reyes Canyon, Helotes. We will open the public hearing at 7:02. Is there anyone here this evening to speak at the public hearing? Seeing as no one is here to speak at the public hearing, we will close the public hearing at 7:02. Move to our next item, which is citizens to be heard, and I don't believe we have any this evening. So we'll move to the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting from July 1, 2014. You should have found the minutes in your packet. If there's any edits, corrections, changes, please bring those to our attention, or if they are accurate, we can have a motion. Mills.
I move we approve the minutes as published.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mike. All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There we go. Okay, item 6 this evening is discussion and action on a request from Duke and Susan Daniel to replat 3.197 acre tract of land by removing a lot line between two platted lots and establishing lot 2A, property located 10716 Los Reyes Canyon, Helotes. This is a recommended item to council. Rick, did you wish to speak to this at all? And I gather that you folks might be the Daniels, correct?
The only thing, Chair, that I would offer to this is that the city engineer has made a recommendation on this package, and that is to approve. They did address two comments that were submitted by a adjacent neighbor who had concerns about the lot setbacks and the drainage, existing drainage easement. The lot setbacks are to remain the same, and the drainage easement will remain the same, and no encroachment into the drainage easement will occur. Essentially what this does is take two lots and make them into one larger lot so that there is more of a lot for a home to be built on, and that's not going over an existing lot line.
The plat document that you received, the drawing, is very small. I've got a enlarged one here, full-size one, if anybody would care to see it. But on the question of the setbacks, and Rick, clarify this or correct me if I'm mistaken, but the setbacks are not, don't conform to the R1 standards, given the time at which these lots were created, the plat was done. So the setbacks, I think it was 25 feet here.
25 feet to the front and 10 to the side.
Right, which is less than what we normally would require.
That is correct.
And so that's not effective, best way to put it.
Yeah, we are conforming to the existing deed restrictions or covenants within Los Reyes Canyon.
Right. Also, to clarify, Rick, the item on our agenda is discussion and action on a request. That action can be fairly described as a recommendation action,
That's correct.
because council in fact has a scheduled public hearing on this item, or should.
This item will go to city council and there is a scheduled.
Great. Okay. Are there any, comments, discussion items, discussion points, or questions regarding this particular replat that is before us? Well, not replat, excuse me, wrong way to put it, plat. Yeah, sorry, Keith.
Was this 3 lots at one time? Because I'm looking here, it says lot 3, lot 2 on another drawing, the original plat.
Can I see what you're looking at? No, this is the, that's a floodplain line.
Yeah, but it says lot 3.
Get it away. Lot 3 and lot 2. Lot 1's a complete different parcel. This is a neighboring lot. It's only joining these 2 lots. There's this one square lot, and then there's this one flag-shaped lot. Those are the 2 being joined. This is that lot 1.
Mr. Daniel, let me ask you, if you come on over here and just
Absolutely.
put your name and current address on record, and if you would just state what you just said more generally.
Sure, yeah, my name is Duke Daniel, currently live in, here in Helotes in the neighborhood of Triana at 10426 Foxen Way. And to answer the question that was asked, it is previously 2 lots, lot 3 and lot 2, that we're looking to join. The lot number 1 reference is a neighboring lot, that's not, our lot is not being joined with these.
I think what was throwing me off is it says unit 1A and unit, lot 2A, and that was.
Right, yeah, the 2A is the new designation.
2 and 3 merge essentially, become
Correct.
just
Correct.
the new number is 2As.
Correct.
That's the way it's designated. Any other questions for Mr. Daniel while he's up here?
Helps.
That's good.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Do we have any, possible motions that we'd like to make, or,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir, Mike?
I'd like to move to approve, to recommend requesting, let me start that over again. I'd like to move to recommend to City Council to approve the request from Duke and Susan Daniels to replat a 3.197 acre tract of land by removing a lot line between 2 platted lots and establishing lot 2A on property located at 10716 Los Reyes Canyons, Lowe's, Texas 78023, more particularly described as CB 4522A, Block 1, Lot 2 and 3, Los Reyes Canyons.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Got it. Further, or any discussion on this motion, Mike
I have
or
nothing.
Ron
I have nothing.
or anyone else? So the motion is to recommend approval to council of the request from Duke and Susan Daniel to replat 3.197 acre tract of land, removing a lot line between 2 platted lots and establishing lot 2A on property located at 10716 Los Reyes Canyon, Helotes. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for being here, and the 14th, I believe, is the date of the city council meeting, which would be where final approval or authority would be granted. So thank you. We're gonna move ahead tonight to item number 7. Item 7 is discussion and action on a recommendation to city council on a proposed ordinance amending chapter 96 signs and chapter 30 elections of the city of Helotes Code of Ordinances regarding banner, political, monument, projecting, wall, hanging, window, and miscellaneous signage.
Chapter 66.
Say it one more time?
This is chapter 66.
Yes, chapter 66, did I say
thought you
different?
said 96.
Chapter 66 is what I meant to say. Thank you. And chapter 30 elections. So I'm going to ask our city administrator to briefly speak to this document. I'll introduce it by reminding everyone that we've had this agenda item a couple times over the past few months aimed at addressing that need for clarifying and being a little more explicit in certain places regarding different types of signs and what is permitted, in particular regarding the content of these signs. So, Rick, take it away.
Okay,
Yes, essentially what this does, as you recall, is we were revising the Code of Ordinances for banners, monument signage, and wall signage. Essentially what we were looking at for the banners was to allow for banners to be placed onto private property for special events, and to allow for things such as Carnival and San Antonio Highland Games to not have to have a permit for every banner that they put in the on private property. The other thing that we were looking at is under political signs, which I will discuss shortly, but let's skip over to commercial signs, wall signs, monument signs, multi-tenant monument signs. What we were looking at was how to dictate or how not to dictate what individuals put on their signs for their individual business. And so what we were directed on a staff level to do at the last meeting was to reference, and I'll read from 66-50, which is the same for all of the sections in the code, or in the sign code, is to reference Chapter 98 zoning, Article 9, which is the Architectural Review by Planning and Zoning Commission, Section 98-253, subsection F, which deals with signage. In addition, we were instructed to place within this code, sign content shall be limited to appropriate information necessary to identify the business and to carry out the normally accepted activities for a business of its type, which essentially is an open-ended way of allowing for anything so long as it looks good and this commission believes that it's aesthetically pleasing. This was taken, if you recall, from another suburban municipality in their sign code directly, word for word. I believe it was the city of Alamo Heights. So as you go through, all the strikeouts are the areas that used to say the sign may contain only the name of the business, its address, and logo or nature of business, and to replace it with the verbiage that I just described. This would apply to, again, all monument signage, wall signage, projecting and hanging signs, and signs that are in or on windows. Lastly, what this ordinance does is it removes regulations with regard to political signage at the polling place from Chapter 66 signs and places it within Chapter 30 elections that deals with elections, electioneering, election poll sites, and also deals with how candidates apply for office. All of the verbiage in 30-2 that is proposed here is new, and essentially what it does is it defines what electioneering is, it defines what a polling place is, and then it talks about political signs. And there are four different areas that are significant that were a part of the discussion at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Number one, the size. It shall, according to this ordinance, or this proposed ordinance, it shall not exceed 18 inches by 24 inches in size. The number, a maximum of 6 political signs at a polling site, with 4 being allowed to be placed on the tents that are typical during a municipal election here for candidates running for office. And then it also describes the location that signage can and cannot be placed. Essentially, it cannot be placed within the designated area that is prescribed by state law, which is within a certain number of feet from the front entry door. And the last is the duration. I know there was some concern last time about the duration language, whether you would have to take put signs up one day and take them down the very same day. So we have described that as signs being displayed at polling places from 24 hours prior to the opening of the polls for an election is what we added, until 24 hours after the closing of the polls for the same election. And we believe that that is sufficient enough to say there's only one election for that period of time, so it's 24 hours before, 24 hours after. It also goes into detail about electioneering at the polling location. This is not, to my knowledge, is not currently within the Code of Ordinances, but sort of just a standard practice that we've had. So we have put in here language that says that candidates for office apply with the city secretary and are designated a particular space out front. So you can still do the exact same thing you've always done. It just requires that the city secretary designate the locations for the different candidates. And finally, 30-2 does reference 66-47 for political signs on private property. We have not amended that section at all, with the exception of removing signage at a polling place, because it's covered under 30-2. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any duration requirements for non-political signs? After the event is passed, how long it can be displayed?
For non-political signs, no. Well,
Can you give an example, Niels, of what type of sign you're
Like
referencing?
the carnival. So they
Carnival sign.
advertise the rodeo and the carnival. Well, a week after the rodeo's over, is the sign still up?
we do have regulations for banners. So those banners that are on Leslie Road should be permitted in accordance with our code.
Thank you.
This is obviously a recommendation item, Chair, so that any action that this body would take would go to be forwarded to the City Council.
All right, so we have three different components here that we can talk about. First is banners. I'm gonna go forward.
Okay?
The banner change, if you notice, this is on the first and second page within the packet. This is 6644. The most significant or notable change is the addition of the language regarding the public right-of-way. Not just that, private property too. But it doesn't change, it doesn't change the duration, it doesn't change anything about the signage itself, is that correct? The signage, the regulations for the signage remains the same.
Yes, those regulations were recently amended by the Commission and City Council within the last year or two, and so we did not amend those sections of the code.
Are there questions or comments about this particular change that is proposed based on our discussion? I have one, I think, just clarification, the addition of the language regarding public right-of-way. Is accessible, the public right-of-way for these type of banner signs is accessible to anyone in the public for advertising or promoting their particular event. Fair enough?
That is correct. And actually, that is key here, is that under location, it used to say parallel or perpendicular to the public right-of-way, but not located on the right-of-way.
Now we've added it located on.
Well, we all know that banners have been placed for some time on public rights-of-way for different events. And so as long as they're regulated and we know about them, I don't have a significant issue with them being on municipal rights-of-way. As a matter of fact, it does tend to make sense that you would place it on public rights-of-way as long as they're complying with our banner, the rest of our banner code. And it's been standard practice for a number of years. So those are my comments on that.
You can have a banner in place, this hasn't changed, but you can have a banner in place for 30 days, each quarter of the year.
Who enforces this? Who?
It's code enforcement? Code enforcement.
Because it's blatantly disregarded all the time.
It's typically blatantly disregarded on Saturday and Sunday. And that, of course, is when the code enforcement officer is not on. Now, I will say the code enforcement officer is operating on random Saturdays now throughout the year. And it's in a sense to sort of combat some of that. We will always have issues with banners. They're very difficult to regulate, but we are trying to make steps at least to recognize that there is particularly an issue on Saturday and Sunday, and trying to get somebody out there to start enforcing the code as much as we can.
Yes.
And what is the penalty?
What is the penalty?
Yeah.
The penalty provisions are either included within the latter part of Chapter 66, or they're included under Chapter 1, which is administration, which is sort of the catch-all. So if there is a citation issued, it can be as much as a $500 fine per day of the occurrence. Practically, the judge would not likely go to such harsh extremes, but that is allowed within code.
Other comments or questions on this portion? Okay, let's turn to the commercial sign, and that's sections 6649 through 6651 and all of its subparts. And as City Administrator pointed out, the main change is under the design section, which is identical for all of them, which references the architectural review by planning and zoning signage section of the code, and notes that content of signs shall be limited to appropriate information necessary to identify the business and carry out normally accepted activities. If you recall, our discussion focused on should we be prescriptive regarding what is permitted and not permitted on sign content, and I think this captures what our intent was. Any comments or thoughts about this before we send it up to council? This is a significant change from what previously we've done, or what we previously allowed.
May need a few to see how it works out. See if,
Can be revisited.
Yeah.
As I recall, part of our discussion as we debated it seemed to come back around to the idea that what a sign looked like in terms of its material, its aesthetics, its size, were more important to us and to the city than the particulars of the content, how it looks, in other words. So this certainly creates a great deal of flexibility in what somebody could put on the sign to promote their business. I think you're probably right, Mike, that until we see it in action, it's hard to know what we'll actually get.
There is one little point in this that I would ask for clarification on. That's the word appropriate. Who makes the determination when it is not appropriate, and under what circumstances, what time? You go out and see the sign, say, hey, that's not appropriate. You know, how you, when they come in, ask for approval, then we make that determination?
Yes, the arbiter of appropriate is the commission. So during the review process, you will be able to, I always say within reason, dictate what is and is not appropriate on the face of a sign. And I use the term within reason because we can always be sued or challenged
Of course.
for any decision that we make. So, but generally speaking, the commission.
And we will act in the city's best interest as we get these applications for signs, as long as we're acting consistently. So that if we define appropriate in whatever way we define it, if we do it for applicant A, we better do it for applicant B. And you know, we've had a lot of consistency among this group, but you can imagine that 5-6 years down the road, as turnover takes place, it'll fall more to staff to help keep that institutional memory of what types of things are being approved and not approved.
So, that is a risk that we are potentially accepting.
And Mike's got the architectural review signage section. Do you have the section F handy? 253.
253
Yeah,
is right.
turn it in. It's way at the back.
Okay.
Keep going. I'd ask you to just read off the main categories here. So this is what we're referring people to. Hang on 1 second, Niels.
Okay, which one? All the numbers?
Yeah, just the
Okay.
basic issues, not the whole detail.
Comment?
Okay, for signage, it states to refer to the city sign regulation. And then it goes on to say signage serves two functions: to convey information, to attract attention. Then it refers to sign design. Consider pedestrian and vehicular traffic, in selecting the, criteria. Signage and the building, I'll just try to, parenthesize these as I can. Location of signs so that they emphasize design elements of the facade but not obstruct or obscure architectural details. The design and style of both lettering and sign should complement the style of the building. Materials: glass, painted wood, painted metal, or architectural decorative metals, and it goes on to give examples. Sign lighting: incandescent or metal halide lights are more appropriate than fluorescent or high-pressure sodium lighting. So it tries to provide guidance there.
So we're referring them to a section that's an architectural review that speaks to design elements and is not prescriptive in terms of content. It fits with this new language.
If I could add in one more thing, at the top of 98, 251, which of Article 9, which is architectural review, the high-level goals are to promote orderly and harmonious development of the city, encourage the attainment of the most desirable uses of the land and improvements, enhance the desirability of living conditions in the city, promote high aesthetic quality of development in the city, and preserve and enhance historic sites, structures, and areas. So there's high-level guidance on, when we consider these things to keep in mind, I think.
Becomes our guide.
As long as people that follow us, go with that.
Niels, thank you for waiting.
The history has shown that the search for the concept of reasonableness is sometimes bad success, sometimes not. Many lawyers retired based on a court case on what's reasonable, what's not.
Sure.
I think we're going to do the best we can based on our current interpretation, and then hope that it works.
Absolutely. Good faith effort, act in a consistent manner. Don't favor or disfavor applicants for inappropriate reasons, that type of thing. I don't think we can be faulted. You're right about the court cases. It's famously said, walks like a duck. You recognize it, but I think that is open to interpretation as long as we act using these principles that are articulated here. I think we're in good shape as is council. Okay, on the election section, if we can move to that, which is really, that is a brand new section, correct? We've pulled out of the sign section the election signage on public property, particular city property, really, we're talking about polling places. Are there any comments or questions about what is proposed in the new chapter 30, particularly section 30-2? I have one I'd just like to ask, not about the signage, but about the electioneering piece. We don't articulate as a city the potential or the areas that are considered appropriate for electioneering. So I understand that an applicant comes in and would like electioneering space, first come, first served basis, the city assigns them. So does someone request a particular space, or is there a menu of areas from which one is assigned space, or how does that typically work?
Are you talking about in practice now or per the code?
How about what we're proposing here?
The code simply says that they need to apply with the city secretary, and the city secretary will determine the place, which historically has obviously been directly across City Hall in the rear parking spaces across from the front of City Hall, which I assume that it will remain the place that we designate for elected officials. In practice, and the council members that are here may need to correct me, but I believe it was first come, first served. Whoever got there first set up in those locations, and they had the choice of where they wished to be. So this will, and it was sort of on the honor system. I believe that if you picked it the first day, you sort of always stayed in that same spot. So, but this will actually establish who that spot is for that individual person for the duration of the election.
And so in theory, this could apply outside of city elections, should a,
That is
say, a
correct.
school board?
Well, we have had school board
candidate or,
individuals
you know-
outside during an election as
Right.
well. So they would have to apply for a particular space to come every day.
That space includes the little, pop-up.
No, that is only the space. That is, the candidates bring their own supplies.
I mean, but I mean the space for that.
The space is a 10 by 10 essentially, yes.
In anybody's memory, have there been more than 2 such electioneering spaces in practice at one time?
I believe at one time there were 3 at most that I can recall.
We're not talking about 6 or 8.
No.
But there's nothing in the code to prevent that, and I'm not sure we need to, but
Right.
just need to realize it could grow larger, so I think the catch to that is, or the safety net to that is, as space is available, so we may need to designate, here's all the space we have. When that's full, then it's full. That way you don't have somebody out, you know, by the movie screen, you know, potentially, not that they do that, but, you know, or in the gazebo or something.
What is, I don't see it in here, I don't think it needs to be, but the state mandated distance from the polling site itself.
I think it actually just references,
It
100
is,
feet.
it's 100.
Yes,
yes.
But so that would be from here, that'd be measured from our front door of this
100
building.
feet.
Yes, it's measured from the front door. It's marked in blue out on the sidewalk.
Got it. Okay. Any
And
questions?
that's state statute. That
Yeah.
is-
I don't remember what it was. Any other questions regarding either electioneering or election signage?
Nope.
Okay. So then we have these 3 pieces. It's all rolled into one item here on our agenda. I don't, from our conversation, it does not appear we have any suggested changes, in which case, it'd be appropriate to have a motion for recommendation to council.
I'll do a motion.
Joe?
I will make a motion that the proposed ordinance amending chapter 66 signs and chapter 30 election of the city of Helotes, codes of ordinance regarding banners, political monument projecting, wall, hanging, window, and miscellaneous signs be recommended to the city council for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Michael seconded it. Any further discussion? So the motion is to recommend approval to council of the proposed ordinance amending chapter 66 signs and chapter 30 elections of the city of Helotes Code of Ordinances regarding banner, political monument, projecting wall, hanging window, and miscellaneous signage. All in favor, please signal aye.
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 Opposed? So this goes to council, presumably on their next agenda?
14.
14th of August. And thank you to Rick and staff for helping to see this one through. Our final item this evening is discussion and action on a zoning amendment application made by the Planning and Zoning Commission, removing all by right and specific city council approval annotations for the use of flea market within chapter 98 zoning appendix A schedule of uses, the city of Helotes Code of Ordinances. And I'd ask, Rick, did you want to introduce this? Again, this follows up on a long discussion we've had in here.
Yes, I would. Essentially what it does within the schedule of uses, you know that there are either X's or there are indications for city council specific use approval, which is CC. This would remove all X's and all CC's from flea market designation. So in a sense, you have no area in the city that is allowed by right or by special city council use to have a flea market. So it still remains within the schedule of uses, but it's not allowed anywhere within the schedule of uses. Or excuse me, it's not allowed anywhere within the city in a particular zoning district. This zoning amendment application is on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which you can initiate zoning changes on your own motion. But what you would be doing tonight is setting a public hearing date at the next Planning and Zoning meeting. We would put a publication in the paper advertising both the commission's and the city council's public hearing. Once you have your public hearing, you would either recommend approval or denial of your own application, and you would forward that to City Council for final approval. So the earliest that any change here will take place will be in September.
So this is not to actually approve or disapprove our recommendation, merely to move forward with the request of staff to set the process in motion.
Yes.
So we're just requesting,
You are-
we are in theory, approving our application.
No, you are setting a public hearing date, and that needs to be done through the normal motion process.
We're
All right,
actually, I think,
okay.
we are putting forward our request to amend.
That is correct.
It's as if we are collectively applying, requesting an amendment, a schedule change. The request that we are making as a group, based on our past discussions, is to remove from the schedule of uses the by right and city council approved flea market use.
Okay, I was just getting wrapped up in a couple of words. It says in the first line, zoning amendment application. We're applying for something, it sounds like. It's just the semantics, I guess.
Yeah, maybe so. It's this is what we're talking about.
Right,
Not approving it, but making it, submitting it.
okay,
You are submitting it and setting a public hearing at the first meeting in September.
okay.
Keith?
Did you ask, city lawyer about this? Get his opinion on that?
The short answer is no, I have not. But just from my standpoint, looking outside in, there are certain protected categories, and I was not asked to get with the city attorney on this from the commission last time. It was actually on the prior item.
Yeah.
But on this item, there are certain protected categories that are under free speech. Sexually oriented businesses are one, which is why we have zoning designations, very specific zoning designations that are very, that there are several hurdles that you must overtake before you can start one of those businesses, but that is a protected category of speech. Now, again, I'm not an attorney, but I know that's a protected category of speech. Pornography is a protected category of speech. A flea market, I don't think that there are any First Amendment rights with prohibiting a flea market within the city of Helotes. That's the short answer to the question. But before this goes to city council for final approval, the city attorney will review the zoning amendment application, yes.
But the fact that we have it in the schedule in some ways protects us, does it not? Because if someone were to come in with a use that is not in our schedule,
It actually protects you in the sense that because it is on the schedule but not designated,
right?
nobody can claim that it is a new and unscheduled use
And request it to go anywhere.
and request to go to do anything with it.
Right,
So it actually prohibits further additional action to allow a flea market.
It is scheduled in the sense that it is in the schedule.
That is correct, but it's just simply not allowed.
So I suppose, yeah, go ahead, Niels.
The term flea market, for some reason, just doesn't sit right. It doesn't seem to me to be appropriate for Helotes from a long time ago to the future. I know it's approved use, but it's something it just sounds surreptitious. There's something wrong with that. I don't feel good to hear the word Helotes in flea market. At market days, that's great, but flea market, doesn't rings a lead bell. And that's not us.
Well, what happens if somebody comes to us and proposes a outdoor market? Something that's not in here.
Okay.
What would be the process?
At that point, it would be a new and unscheduled use, and they would appeal to the commission for a new and unscheduled use, which would then be, if it was approved ultimately through council, incorporated into the schedule of uses as that that title, okay? And we would have to define what that is.
But it goes back to, what about the definitional point about what a flea market is? Because what if somebody proposes a use that we would consider to be a flea market just by a different name. What would be our ability to regulate that or consider that? No, that's not actually an outdoor market, it's a flea market.
You have the ability as a commission, and city council has the ability as a council through your own discretion collectively to make that decision. I mean, nobody can define any one thing as specifically as you want it to be, especially in government. So the discretion there is actually a benefit, because if this commission does or does not believe it's in accordance with the master plan or in accordance with just the city of Helotes in general, then you can deny it, and so can city council. That is the whole point of having a collective body make the decision. So there is no definition in our code of ordinances for a flea market.
But would it be your judgment, at least as an administrator, not a lawyer, would it be your judgment that if two applicants came to us proposing outdoor markets, and one of them was essentially like Market Days, which we liked, and the other was actually what we would consider a flea market, and we approved one outdoor market and not the other, would you consider that to be a defensible action by the
Yes, yes. You can be sued for anything. So do not be afraid of being sued for making a conscientious and smart decision as the collective body believes to be a smart decision.
Other comments, questions?
I'm not sure that you can have a bulletproof definition. I don't think you can have a bulletproof definition. We come close, but open and holds. But can't we think of a better suggestion than flea market came from France a long time ago. Stolen goods, illicit goods. Beggars had fleas all over. They call it flea market. That's where it came from. Illicit, surreptitious, not a hell. People would go down there after dark and buy it and trade stuff. And that's where I'm coming from. That's not a Lotus. When you think of an open market, something else, that's just not right. Flea market just doesn't sound right.
I appreciate the perspective. I don't know that everybody would agree with that per se, but I do think your point is what is important to consider. And I would also point out, and Ron Haza could speak to this, who's been on this commission for a long time, we've revisited the schedule of uses over the years to revise them and try to envision new possible uses and respond to the changes in the city. It's, would you say, fairly hopeless as a task to try to be able to make a bulletproof.
We did that even the first time I was on the P and
I
Z.
mean, it's endless.
You cannot hit every item.
Yeah.
As much as you try, there's always something new that pops up.
And so what do? You fall back on the master plan, you fall back on the other elements of the code that speak to the broader objectives of what you want your city to look like and what uses you want to be there. And so to take sexually oriented businesses as an example, they're protected, right? So we might say we don't wish for that to be here, but you have to include that as a possibility given free speech rights. I believe we do not have a designated area for mobile homes currently.
We do not have I would have to look that up
I
to
don't
be
believe-
specific,
but
but it
it's
is severely limited
Right.
if we even do have a zoning designation.
Right. But it's in here.
I think we have a definition without a designation.
I believe that is correct. We have a definition, and we specifically state that mobile homes that are in existence currently are allowed to continue. But there is no mobile home district in the city of Helotes.
But to bring it back to flea markets, which is the specific item before us, it was the judgment of this group over our conversations over the past few months, and issues that have been before us. We concluded that this is not a use that we wish to see in the city and wish to make that clear through the schedule of uses.
Yeah, a mobile home district is R3. We do not have any R3 in the city.
All right, so unless there's further discussion, the item before us is, again, not acting on this right now.
You do have to act to set the public hearing.
Right, not approving or disapproving this, so I think it's pretty obvious which way we're leaning. But to set the date for the public hearing, and then it eventually goes to council, so this is, take another month, 6 weeks to do. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Joe?
I make a motion that the planning and city council for approval and a date be set for a public hearing.
That's, well, hold on a second here. That's, we're not looking to make a recommendation just yet to council. This is all,
We're not going to council yet.
no, this is all internal commission business still at this point.
Okay,
Mr.
back
Chairman.
city council.
So, could we accept a friendly revision to that?
I'll accept the friendly revision.
Joe, would you consider changing your motion to read something like, Planning and Zoning Commission set a public hearing date of the first meeting in September to present, or to hear comments on removing all by right and specific city council approval annotations for the use of flea market within chapter 98 zoning, appendix A, schedule of uses of the city of Helotes Code of Ordinances.
I would consider if I understood it.
Okay, so just to, let me see if, we clarify this. What
Yeah.
we're doing here tonight is, if you go back to your materials for this evening, for number 8. Number 8, you have a zoning amendment application.
Yes.
And to begin the process of changing the schedule of uses, we need to submit this application. And as part of the process of submitting this application, we need to thereby schedule a public hearing. Public hearing will invite comment from the public on the proposed change, after which we will discuss and debate it, and then make our recommendation to council. So at this point, what Mike's suggestion is simply to frame it as directing staff, how do you word it, directing staff to set the public hearing date of first meeting in September, to have that public hearing. So think of it as a two-step process. Step 1 is set the public hearing, step 2 is have the public hearing, and then we make our recommendation. Does that help?
That's the action involved. I
That's the
understand.
action tonight,
That's
yeah.
the action involved. I was just thinking about how you word this to get that action on the paper.
Yeah, say it one more time, if you can.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Ron can get it.
Okay.
Get Ron get it down.
I move to have the Planning and Zoning Commission set a public hearing for the first meeting in September to present the issue of removing all by right and city council annotations for flea market in the schedule of uses.
That's fine, except I change the word present to consider.
Second.
Okay.
That good? So this started as Joe's, we'll leave it Joe's because Mike's just did the friendly amendment. Is there a second to it? Are you still okay with seconding it?
Second.
Yes, well, third, we'll call that third.
That's fine. Yeah.
What concept does market days come under? What concept does market days come under?
Market days, within the schedule, Alex, do you know offhand?
As Rick will tell you, it's a government activity and therefore not subject to the schedule uses.
That's true.
Sponsored by the state, therefore the city doesn't need to go. We got it here. All right, so the motion is to set the date, first meeting in September, for the consideration of the zoning amendment application.
There you go.
And that application, as Mike indicated, is to remove the by right and specific city council approval for flea market in the schedule of uses. All right, everybody understand it? All in favor of approving this motion and setting the public hearing date for, I believe it'll be September 2nd. Please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. September 2nd is a Tuesday, so it's the day after Labor Day, which is when this will come up for then this public hearing and discussion. Okay, I believe that's it. Is there a motion, John, to go out?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 7:50.